Welcome today to Be Your Own Advocate. My name is Isaiah. I'm joined here with Isabel, my co-host, and we have an amazing guest today named Omid. He is a integrative psychologist. He's been practicing over 20 years. He's a child psychologist, but his focus really now is on many different people, all types of people. And we wanted to bring him in today because he's a friend of mine, someone I know, and I just think he's incredible. I know he's got a lot of tools and information and insights to offer. And today's topic is going to be dissociation, the effects and causes and what we can do to become present again and move out of dissociative states. So welcome, Omid. Hi, Omid. Welcome.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Yeah. So when we
It's
talked
so nice to
earlier,
meet you. Sorry, it's so nice to meet you. I've been hearing about you and looking forward to today's conversation because it's so timely. So I was very excited when Isaiah said you were going to be a guest. So thank you.
Sure, nice to meet you too, Isabel.
Yeah. Thank you.
Isabel's my aunt, and we
Yes.
decided to do this
Mhm.
about a year ago. And really, our focus is health and healthcare practitioners, and just giving people tools to become their own advocate, whether that's for themselves or their family. And you had mentioned we wanted to discuss dissociation, which I think, as she said, is perfect
Yeah.
for today's society and where we are in our lives and world and media. And so just want to kind of get into, like, first of all, how do you define dissociation,
Yeah.
and where would you like to begin this conversation, Omid?
Yeah, my my dissociation is historically been seen as like a symptom of severe trauma.
Mhm.
It's when the mind, it's like checking out. It's when the nervous system under threat experiences extreme overwhelm. Um, we we have a fight or flight response, right? That's our natural response to threat is the stress response, fight or flight. But we also have a freeze and dissociative state that we can go into. It's like when we it's like playing dead, like we go limp and fully check out. And it's seen as a extreme state that you can go into because of trauma. I think it happens. I think I've always thought it happens a lot more commonly. Like myself, I would remember, as a kid, but it's like you're kind of like you can be overwhelmed by things that may not seem like big threats, but if you're 10 years old and you're intimidated by something, maybe you're like you start to just zone out. You kind of your mind, you go all into your thoughts, you leave your body. Your mind is, it feels like you've left your body because you're really not in touch with your senses. It's
Mhm.
our body that is the place in which the overwhelm is happening, the threat is occurring. And so it's like disconnecting completely where we're just in our thoughts, might like just zone out and go into like a pinpoint somewhere or completely lose track of time. And but it was interesting, like almost almost 20 years now, is there was a therapist who reached out to me on a cold call and said, um, the some of our patients in our clinic who have opiate addiction, they've been given naltrexone, which is something that blocks the opiate receptors, the endorphin receptors that get you high, and it's used to um, prevent the person from feeling the high, and it helps addicts. If you don't get high, it breaks the reinforcement. And he said, but we found that it's helping with dissociation. And I
Mhm.
looked it up on the internet, and there was nothing on it at the time. There's still very little on it actually, but it's been really interesting because I said, sure, I'll try it. And it's been 20 years that I've been by using it more and learning how to use it more because it blocks dissociation. And by asking the right questions more, being more interested and finding how much more common it is, and then kind of like realizing it's actually like in some ways what's always potentially happening in mild or moderate or severe ways. Like what we call dissociation is like these severe states. But any way in which we're disconnecting from our emotions and our feelings is actually somewhat mediated by dissociation, I'm finding, because when I give people this medicine, it helps you basically feel your feelings, which is really crazy to see how
Mhm.
immediately it can help people. And
Huh,
I
that's
think,
amazing.
yeah, and then in modern life, I think then the modern life part where you said it's timely, Isabel, is I think it's become, I think part of why it's become more and more part of how I like see things is because I think dissociation can be this way in which we have adapted from childhood. Let's say, if you like with things that weren't allowed, maybe like if you weren't allowed to be angry or not allowed to be sad, whatever it is, maybe we learn to dissociate as a way of pretending that we don't feel those feelings so that we could fit in.
Right.
But
Or stronger, like physical sexual abuse would be an example where people fully dissociate to deal with the traumatic event, as an example, yeah.
yeah, and that's like the one that's known as like really the full dissociation from severe trauma. But there's so many subtle ways that it's like, who am I allowed to be in order to fit in? That they are also, it's mediated by dissociation. We're disconnecting from parts of us that don't fit in, or are not okay. Um,
And
so,
on
but
that nervous
modern
system
life.
level,
Hmm.
sorry, on the nervous system level, it feels like we're at the point where we no longer have tigers chasing us in most situations, like you talk about, but every little daily stress builds and accumulates to a point where our nervous system is under that level of threat. For anyone who's dealing with chronic issues, it's like
Yeah,
severe level stress, but it's accumulated, right? So I
yeah,
imagine dissociation is the same, where it kind of stacks and stacks and stacks, and all of a sudden you're you're no longer able to connect.
yeah, yeah. And I think then what's happened in the last 10, 15 years too is that as we're more and more online, like how I think whether it's like social media just bringing us online more here, or it's like with COVID, how much more we went on screens and then work on, online more. It's actually that's being more in your head. It's more cognitive. And so anything that is just making us like predominantly cognitive is in a way like wherever if that wedge is already there, I just find that people are more and more dissociated. When I work with people and I help them get better, it's almost a classic situation where they'll have a session when they've like really gotten much more present in their body, on that side of the work, that they'll have an session where we'll come in and be like, I was at a party or I was at a friend. It's like everybody in my generation is really checked out. They're
Right.
like not there, it feels like they're really like half there or like sometimes not even there at all, you know.
Because it's easier for them to just get through the day to not be present. Because I know that we talk a lot about, in my work, the idea of being present, to be in the moment, just so you can be paying attention or receive or, just have that rather than just be, like you said, just be checked out and not participate, But, and I think even with, I was talking with Isaiah before, I was saying, like, I find that in relationships, between a man and a woman, boyfriend, girlfriend, that sometimes they don't speak the same language, until like something happens and then like that trauma comes out and it's like, but you find balance. I guess that's what I'm saying. How do you find balance between, what you're afraid of, what you have buried, and and how you're trying to move forward. I mean, other
Yeah.
than if you weren't going to use the medicine, what do you do to have them, step out of that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the basic thing with dissociation is to get back in your body.
Right.
And
Hmm.
it's a subtle process actually because and it's because cognitive is fast and it can be hard to actually reorient to that kind of awareness because it's more subtle. It's like so you just
Yeah.
basic subtle awareness of body sensations.
Uh-huh.
How do you know if
Yes.
someone says I'm sad, it's like, well, how do you know you're sad?
Yeah.
Like, well, and they tell a story usually. It's like, no, I mean literally what is happening in your body that's telling you to start to
Oh,
notice those sensations.
what do they say?
Well, if you're sad, it's because there's some kind of like heaviness,
Hmm.
maybe warmth in the chest, a heaviness, like a slouchy feeling. Uh,
Slouchy feeling.
our
Yes,
eyes tell
slouchy.
us, our face tells us, our posture tells us. It's an energetic state. You know, if somebody says, I'm angry, says, how do you know you're
Mhm.
angry?
Mhm.
You know, in
Mhm.
typical therapy, then you tell a story because this is like, you know, just actually, how do you actually know you're angry? Like what is telling you right now? Just, and then it's just notice that and just notice how you know that. Experience the experience. It's actually just like I think it's relearning just the normal state of being aware of your feelings and your
Mm.
sensation. It's
Yeah,
actually like relearning, just like, you know, you're working with me, Isaiah, on like body work. It's like just like basic exercises to like make the muscle do what it's normally designed to do. I think that's the body, the brain
But to
regulates.
specifically get that, sorry, go ahead.
Well, the brain regulates bottom up. The is the brain stem, limbic system, prefrontal cortex. It goes in that order. Like our physical sensations are faster than our thoughts, and so it's like learning how to just feel, but then also like being more in physical environments. Like it, and then the thing is, what people say to me, because I'm an integrative psychiatrist, I take people off medicine predominantly. Not that I just take them off, but people come to me to heal, get better, and natural remedies, and eventually just get better. And so I
right,
don't use medicine, or I mostly help people stop needing them. But I like this
right.
medication because it's kind of it's the opposite. It's not that this is another medicine that's going to make you feel better or block the bad feeling. It's actually going to undo your own internal blocking mechanism.
Right, right,
Interesting.
right. So
But
that
it's hard. And I don't like, and they say, oh, I don't want to take medicine. That's why I found you. And I
it's
say, I totally get that. He said, what can I do? And I said, here are the things you can do. But I do find like it's very hard in modern life.
it is.
There's too many
Hard
forces.
not to be reliant too, you know, like you could use that as a bridge and it could be effective, but if you don't bridge with it,
Right.
it's just more dependency, more dysfunction, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And then you can help, and then once you get them to a certain point of being able to hear and listen, then you can do your work in a lot more effective way than when they're totally blocked,
yeah,
And I think even, you know, technology, all of the technology, all of the synthetic waveforms just constantly interfere with all that intercellular communication that you have to now try to unwind and go back in and find the essence of that person in order to be able to help them transform into being a healthier lifestyle person. It must
yeah,
be so hard. And
yeah,
then what Isaiah does is he's working from the body out, so that the two things coming together. But I think you need them both, right? Because stuff is trapped in the body and trapped in the mind, and
yes,
you can unlock either way. I think I have found
But I
that
don't think you
people.
can get out of it through the mind. You can't dig your way out of a dissociative hole with your mental thinking. It's got to be a
yeah,
sensation focused body reorientation, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, in order for it to even like I notice, physical therapy, it's become so popular for people that, have backaches and a lot of right, Isaiah, where people are holding all of these things in their body, that create all the tension and the stress and the lockdown that, through the PT and opening those different channels or their work with you, then they're able to, I guess what you were saying too, then come to more logical ways of thinking about things and, not being in that
It kind of
fright.
naturally happens through movement, but I think it really accelerates when you start to be intentional about it. So that it's like you're filling the space with specific intention, specific emotion, specific mental presence, physical presence, you know? So that like we talk about interoception, meaning everything you feel from the skin layer in is interoception. And
right,
then there's external perception. But the interoception, building your vocabulary of internal sensations, right? And tracking and getting a sense of what you actually feel and communicating that. I feel like that's the juice, that's the magic sauce that
yeah.
nothing can really replace.
Yeah, and what you described is, I think, in basic language, is just like the mind and the body coming back together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Into the
I
same
mean,
timeline, right? Because they're operating on different timelines. It's like you're
yeah,
syncing that timeline, so to speak.
yeah.
yeah. Not an easy task.
Not anymore.
Not an easy. No, no, no. And you mentioned that you'd like to focus on young adults where you can still where they're still pliable,
Yeah.
maybe to be able
Yeah,
to have them see things in a different way so they recognize, what's happening rather than just locking it down, from the beginning. And
Yeah.
everybody has that. So many people come from divorced parents. And not that it can be a big deal or it not be a big deal, but it almost depends on how they're going to absorb it. And then, 30 years later, they're, well, my mother when I got divorced, it becomes their anchor to why everything's wrong. My parents got divorced, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a big part of my that kind of story, um, because with people believing they have a chemical imbalance,
Oh,
it's very
hmm.
common for me to work with someone in their 20s, 30s who was like, I want to try something different. I've been on medicine or therapy for
Hmm.
years, and you look at their story, and they were given diagnosis at a certain age, and then all in my questionnaire, it just asks like, what were your father like? What was your mom like? Were they divorced at a certain point? How old? And it's so common, excuse me, that like they basically started to get sick within a year or two leading up to the divorce, which is like would make sense. The stress in the house was higher. It's not
Okay.
like
Yeah.
you suddenly, right? But then I asked him like, well, what do you think happened? He said, well, I went to a doctor and they told me I have OCD and it's genetic. And it was like within the symptoms all went around right down, you know? So whether
Mhm.
divorce is morally
Like they
right,
took it on an identity, you mean? Like they started to own it at that
it
point?
becomes
Is
an
that kind of
identity. Yeah, it does become an identity, which I'll say
Yeah.
something about that in a minute too, is like, but like they were told like whether divorce is morally right or wrong is or what's the right thing. It's just the breakdown of a family is really stressful.
Yeah.
It's like the whole village is splitting apart. And to tell and then we made it normal, meaning not that we the morality of it aside, it did become so normal that like a lot of those people say, well, yeah, but my parents said, a lot of people get divorced.
Hmm.
Like those are like stories we're telling. It's like sure that may be what happens, but that doesn't mean that it what didn't wind up, there you go. Like a lot of divorce started to happen in the 80s, and a lot of depression, anxiety went up in that time period. So,
Yeah.
but the identity thing is a big deal. Like I find it interesting when there's sometimes I always think trauma so often trauma of some kind is what's underneath people's symptoms from
yeah.
childhood usually.
And
And
that
then
starts the dissociation. It starts then, right?
yeah,
With the trauma,
but
and it
when I
goes,
get somebody in their 20s, like I've been depressed all my life, it's like, well, that was traumatic. I find I really like it too. It's like a lot of times younger people like I don't like want to hear that. And when I inquire why, it's like, there's this thing like my generation is over-diagnosed and they've made it their identity. And
yeah,
it's like a lot of virtue signaling and a lot of just, it's this whole thing, my this, my diagnosis. And like, so it's
right.
also like trauma is behind a lot of it, but also trauma is part of life. Like
Yes.
we evolved
Yes.
actually for a lot more struggle. And
Right.
the problem isn't trauma, it's that we're not healing anymore.
Yeah.
It isn't
Yeah.
that the problem isn't the trauma, just like um, you don't tell somebody they have broken bone disorder,
Mhm.
or if you don't water a
Yeah.
plant, it doesn't, it's traumatic for a plant to like weather the conditions of being outdoors and whatever a plant has to go through. Though there's a lot of stress and trauma, but it keeps healing constantly if it gets enough water and sun. So if it leaves turn brown, we don't call it brown leaf disease,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that. Dissociation was definitely like it was an incubator. The divorce was an incubator for dissociation in my life, I can say, and it feels like um we've grown, like the inability to connect with ourselves is just it's epidemic. It's like we don't have the tools. Our nervous system's taking so many inputs in, good or bad, that we're overwhelmed on a neurological level. And
Totally.
then it just creates this crescendo. It's like the biggest, what do you call it? Co-inflammatory factor or something in current society. For everything else is this ability. Are you connected with yourself or are you not?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that's gonna be I think that's the issue of today. There's a There's a book I love by Yuval Harari, Sapiens. I don't know if you know that book.
I've
Kind
heard
of,
of it.
Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
it's a really profound book, and he kind of tells the story of humanity from the standpoint of uh, cognition. That like we were in the middle of the food chain until we developed enough cognition that we could basically tell stories. We could communicate ideas where we could then organize groups in larger than like 10, 20 people, basically. And so actually how we became so competitive and dominant is because of storytelling allowing us to cooperate. We were able to cooperate in larger numbers, basically, in more
Yeah.
sophisticated ways. And then he takes kind of the story of humanity all the way to the present time. And then his second book is Homo Deus, where he says we're now at a point where we're actually starting to develop a new species, Homo Deus, the second human, because of technology, including psych meds, where we can suppress our emotions and alter our feelings.
You think like the new generation of people are the autistics?
That is
I,
such
I,
that's
I,
now that's an overdiagnosed thing. That's
it is, but like,
so
it is. I
overdiagnosed.
agree, but it seems like that the physical body's inability, just humans and the physical body's inability to survive anymore, whether because of all the toxins and the weight down and the chronic, conditions the body has. It seems like there's an evolution that the body's changing to becoming more esoteric, more intellectual, less dependent on the physical. I
I
don't
think
know. There's,
that's the dissociation. That's what I mean by
yeah,
I'm seeing it more and more.
yeah,
And I can tell you a number of people I've worked with that um, we tried the medicine
hmm,
and they did not like finding out what they were feeling.
Yeah.
oh, right,
And they actually came back and said, I actually think I have autism.
right.
Yeah, the
And
work that works has a
Or
hard sell,
Asperger's.
right?
That's what
well,
there's like, well, it's not quite autism, it's Asperger's, or it's
yeah,
bipolar, or it's, some kind of label, right?
but it's I have a limitation. I have a
As a
limitation
limitation.
that and
Mhm.
that has certain rights associated with it now.
Yes.
Isn't that the
And that,
truth?
and it has a power that
Hmm.
can be weaponized if you don't validate me. It's like it's this thing.
It's
It's
not funny, but
Like,
it's
seriously,
just,
I have to interrupt. That is like so important to discuss that currently, especially here in California, as an example of like, I need everyone to meet me in my feelings at all times, or I'm not okay. Talk
mhm,
about fragility. Like, I really don't agree with this whole idea, this identity, and like you said, weaponizing it for protection. Like
yeah,
it's a big issue, and it often it's centered around really important things like women rights, gay rights, other things, and so of course it's like you can't attack that, but the
no,
thinking and the embodiment of that pattern I can't attack. And I think it's a major issue in our world today. It's creating a ton of division, ton of problems,
yeah,
and a
absolutely.
ton of prolonging of trauma. It feels like it keeps trauma alive for people. It's a
Yeah,
victimization process.
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Exactly.
That's so key because that's big. I guess then you have to go, well, where do we go from here? Like recognizing that, whether it's like you said, women's rights or whatever label you want to put on it that then allows you to be it and sit in it without, anything other than that's an affront. So how does it, where do we go, from here? You can't go
Yeah.
backwards. Never can.
Yeah, I mean this gets complicated if I were to say why I
Yeah.
think it turned out that way, but it is that the individual rights movement, which did so much good, where it I think where it went wrong is it ushered in pure individualism.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Every new progressive idea is meant to improve the health of the society as a whole.
Hmm.
But what happened in the 60s was unique, and this was to me like radical, like, wow, the counterculture actually was maybe the problem is because it was, well, civil rights was its own thing. That was its own progressive movement.
Right.
But the counterculture brought in this whole other frame, which was like, no, it isn't that this is how we're going to help our families and communities become stronger and healthier and better. It's that family and community and culture is actually bad. It's just oppressive.
Yeah.
Don't trust anybody over 30, right? The institutions are always oppressive. The system is, and the individual left alone is the one that's like healthy and happy. And it's,
Mhm.
it's institutions that cause us harm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Versus
right.
like, oh, here's how institutions have
Hmm.
gotten maybe corrupted, or here's where it can be better, became,
Hmm.
no, institutions are bad. So you just you cut off family, community. And there's this idea also that I like is like it's well, and basically what happens, my understanding of the history is then you can't really go very far with that. Like it's just like pure individualism. So so then what happened is by the 70s, the counterculture like co-opted the civil rights movement, and that's what's created identity politics. And that's
Hmm.
what we're describing here is like my identity is based on where in the power structure I'm being taken advantage of, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Which
That's amazing.
category am I a part of that is,
Yeah.
and what oppressive, construct am I needing to, and everything's power. And it's like family, community, culture, faith, religion, all these things are just bad.
Mhm.
And there's other thing that I like. There's a guy, I forgot his name, but he calls it, oh man, I forgot the name. A luxury belief. A luxury
Mm.
belief. It's like the
Mm.
elite, the counterculture were the elite, and the elite,
Mhm.
these were like Ivy League kids who said, family is bad and fathers are oppressive and,
Mhm.
women don't need men to to do well and all these things. And they still went on to create families, which
Mhm.
are the number one predictor of like health for kids. But like but then those ideas like just spread and like, single family homes became
Yeah.
normal. That's a luxury belief, which means like I can afford to have that belief because I have the privilege to, like, it won't affect me, but like working class people, like faith, community, family, you know,
Yes.
these things are like basic things that hold us together,
Yeah, like
that's
working class
that's where your
families.
and that's where your identity comes from. Traditionally, your identity comes from like your family, your community. Like you take honor in like, I'm so and so's son and so's mom, and I'm from this community. And, I joke with my kids sometimes, like, don't forget, like, everything you do reflects on us. But like, because you're never supposed to say that anymore. But like, that's actually
Yeah.
like an old-fashioned value that matters. Like, hey, you
Yeah.
carry yourself with honor in the world because,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Like
it
yeah,
takes some
honor
financial
is,
wealth away too.
what'd you
uh,
say,
Go
Isaiah?
ahead. Go ahead, Isabel.
What did you say? What did you
Oh, I
say?
just said that you take away the wealth, like if you move down to blue collar families and then you
Hmm.
go all the way down to the base with indigenous people, right? The further you go down into nature, into natural human living, I think the more you're dependent upon the tribe, the more necessity is we have cooperation.
Yeah.
And I think because we've gotten to this point with such individual finances, individual homes, we can
yeah,
easily separate, women can do it on their own. That whole thing, it's like breaking down, individually breaking down our power
right,
step by
totally.
step.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have the money and if you have the money and the access, you could do those things. But like working class, the average person, like maintaining family values and those things are like what basically keep things together.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I feel like you can heal. You can't heal what you can't hide, you know? Sorry, last thing, Isabel. You can't heal what you're hiding, you know? So like this seems the answer to dissociation is to come into communication and into community and expose that so you can feel what's actually happening. I feel like it's so easy to keep it to yourself nowadays.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
And people like both of you are rare to find, and then also have to
Exactly.
be able to be afforded, so that's, I don't know, but I would love to have another conversation someday about, where we can go from here. What are some pathways up and out, because there has to be, and I guess that's part of be your own advocate, is what we want to be able to share is here are some things to be aware of, which is fantastic what you just pointed out, because it's the way you've explained things, and, looking at it, it makes sense, and that's what I think a lot of people are losing. It's like life doesn't make sense. Everything's chaos and confusing. And do I believe this or do I believe that? But, you had some very common sense thoughts that if people hear them and they take that moment to think for themselves, then, they can see, well, yeah, I guess, or maybe, or, kind of lead people out into just being able to be more balanced. And
Yeah.
especially as far as, like the young people, they have so much, they have to find their mate and get married and build their, so many things they have to do, and to make them stronger from the beginning would be so beneficial to them and the world. So,
Yeah.
but I knew you would be a great guest.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
It was very nice to talk to you both about a very, very good subjects.